exercise and sports sciences and not over physiotherapy. So basically, it has main domains like strength and conditioning, biomechanics, and exercise physiology. And now the return to sports part of rehab. I'm audible, right?
Yes, Chetna, you're
Hello.
audible. Yes, Chetna, you're audible.
Hello. Yeah. So now, so now the focus from the terminal phase of rehab or the return to part to sports part of rehab has been shifting from physios to like strength and conditioning coach. So which is still evolving. It's not happening. It doesn't happen everywhere. But at Ambani, we used to have a strict segregation of what was the physio's role versus what was an SNC's role. So I was primarily looking after the advanced part of rehab and not the initial return to sports. Or what does return to sport mean basically? It's basically the decision to integrate athletes recovering from injuries back to the sports. Okay, so like here there are a couple of questions which has to be addressed. Basically, how do you plan to return an athlete, whether it's in recreational or professional athlete? So how would you do that, or when would you do that? When is the correct time to do? And if you do that, what is the success rate of doing it? Or should you even let athletes play sport even after getting injured? What are the risk factors of people participating in sport after injury? So like yeah, so let's come before answering all those things, let's come up to some basic statistics about ACL. So if we see primarily a non-contact sport injury, which is 70 to 85%. So a lot of injuries can be prevented with can be reduced. I won't say prevented. The amount can be reduced with good injury prevention program, and the peak in incidence is seen in 14 to 18 years of age in females and 19 to 25 years of age in males. Uh, Contact injuries comprises of 15 to 30%, which is non-avoidable, and females are at greater risk of tearing the ACL. So the video which you saw is one of the example of the gymnast which I have rehabilitated basically. So if you could see, we all know like there are intrinsic risk factors when it comes to females, like wider pelvis and the hamstring cords ratio and all, but there could be some external risk factors as well, so the recent research on the shoes is saying that the shoe design, although the foot shape of females is different compared to males, but so far elite athletes have been using similar, like the design of the shoes is same as males, and only there's only size difference. So now they are doing more research on the how shoes could be possible, be possibly implicated in injury prevention. But all those things are not conclusive yet. We are still trying to do research in that. So next, if you see the odds of rupturing ACL, there's a possibility of 1% getting injured in 1750, but the re-injury is 1:33. Now, why does this happen? It could be from multiple factors. It could be not rehabbing properly, or even if you rehab well, there is a lot of chance of getting injury again on the same side or contralateral side. So 35% of ACLR athletes don't return to pre-injury sporting level within 2 years. This could be due to physical or psychological barriers, and 3 to 22% re-rupture their reconstructed ligament of the same side or the contralateral side in the first 5 years. And younger athletes have 25% chance of re-injuring the ACL. Basically, they are more prone to injury because their skeletal is not matured yet, and the joint tunnel does not, like the ACL graft does not is not taken by the bones properly. So there's more risk of injury in it. So like return to sport is a process basically where you start from return to participation. This is all it is all confusing sometimes. People think return to sport is just one definition. So there are multiple components of return to sport. So like you start by return to some participation in physical activity, then you go to return to sport, and then towards return to performance. So how is it decided? Is it time based? Should you return athletes after they've finished particular amount of time, or should it be area based, or should it be both? Any answers from juniors, guys? Can anyone answer me? So far, what is the understanding? Hello? Time based? Okay. Anyone else? 5 to 6 months post repair. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, so it is not entirely time based. We'll come to it. We'll answer in like coming slides. Just a second. My laptop is. Yeah, can you see? So how is this how is the decision making done? It depends on the athlete. There can be subjective factors with respect to athlete. There could be other factors like age, sex, etc. There could be objective factors which where we come into role. It could also involve decision making of like it could be strength and conditioning coach, it could be physiotherapist, and additionally orthopedic surgeon who is doing the surgery along with the coach. So also there could be external factors like what time of season is it? Are there any laws or anything contract which is signed from the athlete? So which is pushing the athlete towards probably he or she wants to play sport and he's ready willing to play because maybe he's not ready but he wants to play because he signed the contract or so all those this is called, it is also called risk reward ratio. Basically how much are you risking an athlete to return to sport and what is the reward out of coming from the same. So yeah, so decision making process is a complex thing which depends on a lot of factors. So like I would be sharing few guidelines in the coming slides. So like return to sports guidelines, when you're progressing in exercise, simultaneously increase the amount of information to be processed. So like you are increasing the amount of process which an athlete can process. So if you add that too quickly, the ability of to understand that information may not have occurred simultaneously. So you have to progress gradually. Second, you have to balance the attempts to overload. Definitely you have to overload an athlete and develop the functional abilities of an athlete with minimal exposure to potential risk position. And there should be a combination of low risk and high demands maneuvers in a controlled manner. So this is the phase when ideally it is referred to an SNC specialist by a physiotherapist. But again, it can be like if the athlete is recreational, maybe physio can manage it. There's still no proper segregation all across India. So there should be full range of motion from 0 to minus. There should be no or minimum swelling, full weight bearing, leg symmetry index, which is calculated on, which is usually done on isokinetic machine, but a lot of you may not have exposure to that, and there should be no cramping or discomfort. So this decision is taken by a physiotherapist, and it is mostly this will fall into the time frame of about 3 months. There could be a possibility of early referral to SNC, but depends actually. So when an athlete is referred, so what are the so you start with screening an athlete first. You start with functional movement screening like overhead extension. Is there any weight shift? There would be initially. An athlete would shift the weight to the non-affected side. Is there any, you check for the hip, knee, ankle alignment. Is there any valgus or hip drop or anything? You check for neutral back, you check for full range of motion. In fact, you can actually check overhead deep squat, which are the pictures are of half squat, but you can check the complete range. And is there, secondly, hello, hello,
Chetna?
hello, am I
Hello?
audible? Am I audible?
Last 2 minutes we could not hear you. 1 minute. Now we can see your screen.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay. Did you not hear me? Which slide?
Uh,
Yeah, which slide
the
could you not hear me?
last slide.
This one, right? Walking lunge or
Yes.
squat.
Yes.
Okay, so basically we'll start by functional movement screening. By functional movements, I mean certain movement patterns are very basic to sports, like squats, lunges. All those are very basic to to any kind of sport. So you check for weight shifts, you check for neutral back, you check for range of motion. There should be a complete deep squat. Although the pictures are showing half squat, an athlete should be able to do complete deep squat, and any pain or anything which is limiting, basically. So depending on that, your program will be designed. Okay. Then you check for walking lunges. Again, in walking lunges, when you do, the weight should be transferred to the front leg. There should not be a weight shift on the back leg. So weight transfer should happen from the front leg. Again, you check for ankle, hip, knee alignment. Is there any valgus or hip prop? You check for neutral back or trunk lean. Is there a side trunk lean or forward or backward? And you check for limited range of motion or pain. Okay, the next one is step down test. Has to touch the leg down. So you have to go down.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Chetna, we could not hear you.
Yeah, I think, yeah, just a second.
Yeah, I think you have some
Hello,
net
am I audible
issues.
now?
Yes, you're audible and we can see you also.
Okay. I have changed the position. Let's see if this is better. Where should I start from?
Last slide, squatting.
Squatting. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So basically, we start with functional movement screening, which is we do overhead squat.
Chetna,
Okay,
we can't see your screen.
You can't see. Oh, I have any. Just a second.
Yes.
You can, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So can you see now? Yeah. So we start with certain functional movement patterns like overhead deep squat. Okay, where you check for certain points, like these are the checkpoints. Is there any weight shift which is happening? Most probably when you are in the initial phase of rehab, there would be a protective response and you will shift your weight. So mostly it will be there. So weight shifts, then there's neutral back, ankle, hip, knee alignment. Is there a valgus? Or is there any limited, is an athlete able to do complete deep range, or is there any pain while doing the movement? Okay. Second one is walking lunge, where again you look for weight transfer through the front leg. There should not be shift of weight from the to the back leg. You check for ankle, hip, knee alignment. Is there any valgus or pelvic drop? You check for neutral back or trunk lean. Is there a is there a forward trunk lean or backward trunk lean or sideways also? There could be limited range of motion or pain. Okay, the next test is step down test. It is done at about 30 centimeters height. You have to simply step down, touch the floor and come up. Like without completely dropping your leg down. So touch the floor and come up. Touch only your heel. So again, you check for pelvic alignment, hip, knee, ankle alignment, if there is any valgus or pelvic drop, and check for back, neutral back or trunk lean, and is there any pain or limited range of motion. Additional test sets which you can do apart from this in the functional is you can check for single leg bridges, as many reps as possible. Single leg calf raises, again as many reps as possible. Single leg squats, check for any asymmetry and as many reps as possible. You can also do core test, which is plank, side plank, and single leg press. So like it would be more ideal if you have this if you go for kinetic strength testing, especially for athletes. But I know like most of the setups don't have this test, but like I'm just introducing you to isokinetic as well. So at 3 months, your limb symmetry index is at 75% for quads, and your knee flexors is also at, we expect, at about 75%. And by 6 months, it should be extensors should go to 85% and flexors to about 90 to 100%. And like again, you should just keep on checking, and the flexion to extension ratio should be if you're dealing with general population, then it should be more than equal to at about 60, or it should be in the range of 80 to 100 in athletes. So better the ratio, chances of injury becomes less. Okay, then there is YBT. It tests just a second. Hello. Yeah, YBT. It's again a functional screening tool to assess the lower extremity dynamic stability and neuromuscular control. So basically, you're trying to check the dynamic balance and coordination. So if you see your reach distance in all three directions, which is anterior, posteromedial, and posterolateral, it should be less than 4. In the earlier stages, it won't be, but that's fine. And the composite reach distance, uh, uh, which is total reach distance divided by your leg length. So again, it should be more than 94%. And just a second, this is getting hanged. I don't know why. Hmm. Just a second, my the PPT is hanged.
No problem.
It's not getting escaped. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Yeah. So yeah. So stage 1 is written to participation, comprises of strength and neuromuscular control. So basically, your goal is to improve your basic functional movement patterns, which we saw in the assessment. So if there are any deviations, you have to aim to correct all this. If there's restricted range, you work on the ranges. If there's glute weakness, you work on correcting that. So basically, improve your functional basic movement patterns and introduce easy body weight exercises and functional movements like squats, lunges, step ups, single leg deadlift, bridges, core exercises, etc. And in cardio, you can do non-impact aerobic exercises like cycling, swimming, walking, or in fact, you can also do aqua treadmill. But again, it depends. Otherwise, even if you don't have aqua treadmill, you can do pool. You can do session in the pool. So, and improve your single leg balance and strength at greater knee flexion angles. Okay. So next, after you do like basic program for like 3 to 6 weeks of single leg weight bearing exercises, and you are able to do functional movements without any compensations or the pain is under control, then you can start with running. You first start with treadmill running, and then basically gradually start increasing. You start with short runs and then gradually translate to on ground running. And once the patient starts running, the eccentric component, the eccentric hams, becomes the important part of rehab. So if the symmetry of more than 85% of percent is obtained in test sets, which we did before, like single leg squats, single leg bridges, single leg calf raises and all. So if you get about symmetry of more than 85%, then you can progress to stage 2. So stage 2 means return to running, agility, landings, and agility and landings. So here the goal is to regain full strength and balance. you are trying to improve your symmetry in bipedal activities like running, and attain excellent hopping performance, which includes technique, force attenuation and landing techniques, distance and endurance, and progress through agility program. So now strength and balance will depend from person to person. If an athlete is recreational, or if you're just dealing with simple normal general population, you don't have to improve the baseline strength so much, but in athletes it is very much needed. So if you could see here, the videos are showing deadlift and squats. So improve the symmetry in this exercises, and yeah, work on the strength. Okay, now continue with lower body single leg weight bearing exercises like single leg squats and walking lunges. In fact, you should add open chain exercises as well, including knee extensions. A lot of people believe that knee extension in ACLR patient is bad for your ACL and your knee, but that's not true. Studies have shown it is completely safe to introduce knee extension, and there should be high intensity balance and perturbation training in athletes rehab. So if you see, like, this exercise is like reverse lunge with overhead reverse lunge and the step up in picture 1 and 2. So we are trying to combine the strength, this functional movements, along with stability. So challenging the stability and functional movements together. Now the exercises should be more multi-directional and functional. Okay. So again, like, this is another example of how balance should be challenged. These are again ACL patients. Both of them are working together on their balance in different directions. Is it going fine so far? Am I going too fast?
No, it is okay. We are understanding.
Yeah. Then so you introduce and progress through running, agility, and plyometric program. So like, we started with basic treadmill, and then you slowly progress normal running on ground, agility, and plyometric exercises. Now the training should be periodized. By periodized, I mean there should be, like, could be certain high intense sessions, but it should be spaced out with adequate rest in between to recover. And here there is a good chance your patellofemoral joint will go into overload, so you need to keep a tab on watching those signs. So another good thing which you can do is, in this phase especially, you can also introduce doing this drills or plyometrics on beach, like on the sand. Basically that helps in adding your it helps in challenging your neuromuscular system, like your proprioception, but at the same time the stresses are less on the joints, so you can work on that. How to progress with agility and plyometrics, I'll just walk through that. Yeah, so you have to introduce basic ladder drills, uh, like, if you see, you have to start with double leg bunny hops in front, sideways. Same thing can be done on single leg. And sideways again. There are a lot of agility drills. You can incorporate a lot of directional change and all that. You can do shuttle runs, touch and come back. So yeah, it is very important to work on landing patterns. If you see figure A, the athlete is not landing properly, versus figure B, where it shows proper landing pattern. So I'm going to tell you how jumps and lands are progressed. So you start with double leg. So a double leg, tall to shorts. Okay. So what I mean by this is, if you see video 1 over here, basically you are just jumping at that same place. In fact, you don't even have to take off. Like, at the earlier phase, you don't even have to take off. You just ask the athlete to just squat down, like, little faster. Work on just landing down. Okay, then double leg drop lands. So basically here, if you see, she's landing on double leg on both the sides. So this, does anyone know what is the definition of plyometric exercise? Guys, anyone can help me with definition of plyometric exercises? Yes, power producing exercise is correct. What is the definition exactly? Anyone else who wants to try? Okay, basically, by plyometric exercise, the definition means use of your stretch shortening cycle. So basically, tendons, you have to use the stretch shortening cycle. It has three components: the eccentric phase, the concentric phase, the isometric phase, the eccentric phase first, then isometric, and then concentric phase. So when you do any jumps, for example, I'll show you this. So if you see, athlete is just, she'll go down first and then jump. Like there would be momentary pause and then jump down. So that is the eccentric phase. So here, in the green, the boxes in green are working on the eccentric landing, where you are eccentrically squatting down. Okay. Second one is working on the concentric phase, where she is explosively going up. Okay. The third one has direction change. So I don't have a video on that. Basically, you have to do like there could be from the box you have to land. If you see in this video, she is landing down. So this could be done in 90-degree direction or 180 also. Okay. So you can start 90, 180, 360 and broad jumps. And then the last one is depth jump. So what I mean is the athlete is jumping down and then jumping over the other box. So these are the examples of how an exercise should be progressed. So on this side of the table, if you see, there are multiple boxes. There are 5 stages of progressing. So you have to follow the drills in predictive conditions. Basically, without any distraction, you have to make the athlete practice those drills. Second one is on the reactive conditions. Like you have to give verbal cues. For example, when I said direction change over here, this exercise, I can ask her to land in at about 90-degree or maybe 180-degree. I can give her like verbal cues on doing that. In resisted or loaded condition, basically you can add a dumbbell or medicine ball and do the same plyometric jumps. Perturbative conditions means a partner can push when he is landing. Push by mean a slight push, not like don't fall. Athlete should not fall down. And there could be additional structured chaos, meaning the additional drills can be incorporated. You can give them header challenge, or you can just ask them to sprint, or you can just let them sprint and kick or something. So all these drills can be, the more you go towards the right hand side, you have to shift towards the field based approach. Okay. So yeah. So additional ways, that was just with progression with respect to squat jumps. Additional jumps which you can incorporate is like split jumps. If you see, this is a progression of the lunge jumps. It is called split scissor jumps. Here an athlete is doing kneel to squat jump. Okay, this is, now I am giving you an example of unilateral. The way we did double leg, same thing can be done on single leg. So again, a single leg tall to shorts. Tall to shorts, you have to land on single leg, drop lands on single leg hop on the spot or on the box, single leg forward or lateral hop for direction, or there could be multiple directions. You can give them a clock drill or something, and athlete can land down and then jump off. So depth jump is basically you have to land down and immediately take off. So again, you can incorporate first predictive conditions. You can tell them to move in clockwise direction. Then there could be reactive conditions where you give them an instruction. So you can place different colored cones in a circular manner and tell them to, okay, jump towards the red cone, jump towards the black or whatever. Okay, there could be band resisted. Again, you can do as you move towards more. Pertubative is with the partner push, and you can add little bit of drills over here as well. Okay. Now, criteria for passing the stage is single leg hop for distance, triple hop, and crossover. Basically, all three hops test. Single leg, I'm sure most of you must have heard about it. Single leg hop for distance, triple hop, and crossover hop. All three should be more than or about, some papers say 90, but it could be 90-95%. And there could be an additional test which can be done, which is side hops. Basically, you have to give, put a marking of about 40 centimeters apart and jump as many reps as possible in 30 seconds. So return to sports. So when do you allow an athlete to return to sport? This was all return to landing and running and all that. Okay. So when is an athlete allowed to return to sports is, uh, even though athlete will progress through all the criterias which are listed, like improvement in muscle strength and YBT and this hop test and all. So even if an athlete clears all the test sets, but if an athlete returns to sport about early before 9 months, the risk of injury is quite high. So it is said that for a graft to heal internally, the bone to heal, to absorb it better, you need at least 9 months of to get reduce the chances of injury by 1/4. The muscle strength should be, now the limb symmetry index should be 100% for if you are dealing with contact or competitive sport, or if it is non-contact or recreational sport, it can be 90%. Okay, there's something known as dynamic control ratio, which is done again with isokinetic. I mean, if it is not available, maybe you can skip this one. There's modified agility test, the T test. It should be within 10%. And there is this psychological test, RSI index. Basically, it measures how psychologically ready an athlete is. It should be more than 56. However, there's a growing, like this were earlier, like this were the earlier guidelines, but now there's a growing evidence showing that this functional test should additionally be done in fatigue state. So especially in competitive athletes, because the risk of injury is still high even if you clear all this test. So this can be additionally done in fatigue test. So there's something known as Melbourne RTS score. So you can Google it. I mean, it's too vast and too out of scope. It has certain additional test sets like IKDC, knee scoring. There is also 1RM testing. There's a lot of tests. Whatever tests we covered earlier, it has all those test sets. 1RM testing of about 1.8 body weight, which is like, I don't think so a lot of Indian population fit into this category. That's why I'm not included in this. So if you are interested in going through, maybe you can have a look at it later. So in this phase, the rehab should be highly individualized. Here the focus is not to just get the knee ready, but the whole person ready psychologically as well. You have to build a confidence and mental readiness. You have to continue working on strength, agility, balance, landing, whatever we covered earlier. You have to continue all of that along with some participation in sport. I'm not saying 100% yet. It should be progressed very gradually. Start with shadow drills, some small drills you can start with, short duration and low intensity. So again, this is the example of the athlete who got injured. So here I am actually doing her on-field rehab and working along with the coach, where I am building her confidence, standing next to her and asking her to do this drill. And again, here she is going on the beam and she is landing on the non-affected side, but she's building the confidence slowly and steadily for playing sport again. Okay. So basically that was mainly the examples were from gymnastics, but a lot of injuries, the ACL injury is common in football. So I am going to re-summarize it because I know it is new information for a lot of you. So I'm going to re-summarize this. it. So you have to start from written to running. Start with basic strengthening, written to running. Then you slowly build a acceleration and deceleration mechanics. Then you slowly incorporate change in direction and add position specific skills. You have to build tolerance or capacity in each in what like written like in every phase. And then there should be slowly return to contact, slowly return to kicking, and like they can play game, but certain percentage of the game load can be taken. It cannot be 100%, and slowly and steadily athletes should be passed to playing full sport. Now the next phase is, so even though you have done so much of work, the rehab doesn't end here. You have to still continue with prevention of re-injury program. So you have to continue with ACL injury prevention programs, which incorporates plyometrics, balance and strengthening exercises, very much similar to what we did before. And especially this is very important if you are playing before training and game, before like for about 10 minutes, and should be performed at least for 6 weeks, even if you are returning to sport 100%, and should be repeated more than once in a week, once or twice in a week. Now there are multiple injury prevention programs. There are samples like Sports Metric, 11 plus has FIFA 11 plus also has kids version of it, the PEP program, the netball Australian program, and footy first. But like I am not going to go in depth of all. The most common program which is followed especially for football, and in fact not just for football, it is going to work in everywhere. So this is FIFA 11 plus. I can share the document. It is very simple to understand. Basically it includes all the stuff, like starting from basic running to doing some strength training exercises, some core exercises like plank, side plank, incorporation of Nordics, and then you slowly start with landing and all, double leg, single leg, and then you start with like there's partner contact with the opposite with the teammates and all, and then you slowly build on towards running drills, bounding, planting, and cutting. So all those things are incorporated in this. Next, so injury prevention programs, I think it should not be just given to people who are just injured. It should also be, it should be given, it should be given like a vaccine basically, because even though there's a lot of development and testing, we cannot really predict the injury. Basically, it's not lot of time. I mean, you may all have heard that dynamic knee valgus is not good for your knee. Basically, that can lead to knee injury, but that's not true. It is not simple as dynamic knee valgus. There are a lot of factors beyond that. So the prediction ability of ours, even with technology, is still not very accurate, and the re-injury risk rate is very high. So you might as well want to stop. Like you have to prevent as much of injuries as possible. So injury prevention programs should be extended to everyone, all the players. Besides, this, I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but ACL injury does, it also extends. There is some mild neurological insult to CNS system. So there are some neuroplastic changes which happens due to lost mechanoreceptors, pain, and developed, and it basically leads to motor compensation overall. So there's some problem at the CNS level, which cannot be corrected with ACLR. That's why injury prevention programs are very important. So now, so far, what we have achieved is developing the return to sport protocols is only like we have only successfully achieved the upgradation of the hardware, which is like physical ability. But what about the software? You have not focused anything with respect to CNS. Like the motor learning basically. So despite the recent advances in testing, prevention, rehabilitation, injury risk, this is especially the study was done in football, elite football. For last 15 years, injury risk continues to remain same. Why does this happen? Because like of lately we have come to an to realization that we have been focusing only on physical abilities and not on motor learning. maybe that is where we have to shift our focus on. So this is like the future. There is still a lot of research which has to yet happen, but this is what the future of ACL prevention program or rehab program will look like. So perceptual and cognitive load must be viewed with the same level of importance as physical components of performance. Yeah, so which is so far being not very much given attention to. Now this was the video which I came across. It probably is the future of testing. So if you see, it shows a hop test on the lights. When there is green light, he jumps on the right side. So basically it's the same crossover hop test, but the athlete signals and decides which side to hop on depending on the light color. So yeah, this is in India. I don't know how long this will take to come, but yeah, this is the future of the testing basically. I'll just repeat if you have missed. So on the green light signal, athlete is doing the jump. Also, if you see, there was a pattern of the lights color. There was blue, like the sequence of light colors which comes before the green light also changes every time in every trial. So here we are trying to test the like the visual component as well. So this was just a theoretical case study to integrate motor learning. This was through virtual reality glasses. I mean, this is new. I have come across this article and thought like probably share a few things. I mean, you can read it, but this is just a theoretical case study. It is not applied practically yet. So again, I may not go into deep details of it, but if anyone is interested, I can share this article to you. So for example, there's this basically one example I can give, which is given over here. So in the early phase, there's random number which appears on the screen, and you give two tasks, two exercises, basic isometric chords and SLR. So if the odd number comes on the screen, you do straight SLR, and if the even number comes, then you do isometric chord. So here you are incorporating little bit of using your brain along with the exercises. So yeah, that was about it. Guys, any questions?
Yeah, you can
You guys
unmute
want to-
yourself and also ask the questions if you want.
If you want me to go through repeat anything, I don't know, like a lot of things would be new for you. So
Okay, Chetna, I have a question. Hello? Hello?
yeah, tell me.
Yeah, for how
Yeah,
long?
I can hear you.
For how long approximately you go for an injury prevention program?
So basically, like the guideline says 6 months, but I don't like the strength training program is otherwise also followed in elite, even in recreational athletes. So the sport is a byproduct where you need like a basic fitness to play sport. It is not other way around, right? So this injury prevention program, like it works on building your physical capacities, and yeah, so it is important lifelong actually, but minimum of like 6 weeks is the book says, but I would say like it has to be continued. Every athlete who plays simultaneously, they will do an SNC program, so which incorporates all this in a periodized manner. So there would be some phases where they would work on basic strength, developing their strength. There would be phases when they would work on developing their depending on the sport, they will work on their power. They will work on like it would be sport specific. And also this injury prevention program again would be sport specific. So if you are playing football, I would say you need it for lifelong. But yeah,
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
welcome. Any more queries? You guys
There's
want
a
to share?
question on the chat by Isha ma'am.
Yeah, but the neurological aspect caught my attention. I knew actually. Could you please share some light on the association of the ACL and neurological changes? So basically, this phenomena was it's quite recent and it was new for me as well. There are changes. So basically, the knee representation is there at the brain level also. I can share those articles. I mean, I don't think so. Even I myself or researchers have a lot of understanding about it, but technically, what is even in if you see the surgical aspect of it, like recently they preserved the graft. Like the tone, not the graft, the tone ACL. It has some proprioceptors. So earlier they used to just remove the proprioceptors. So now they preserve as much. So like there are a lot of factors which are important, like the mechanoreceptors and all that. There could be pain aspect which may lead to change in, it may lead to changes in neurofunction, or it could be like change in, because like it's a long term process, right? You are injured for a very long time, 9 months, so there are changes in your motor patterns. And in fact, if you see, like 70% of the injury comes from non contact. So these are preventable injuries, which probably means their motor learning or motor patterns are not completely explored yet. So yes, I mean, I can, like, this is so far by my understanding. I can share the articles across, but this concept is like quite new. So, yeah, this was interesting even for me. In fact, a lot of other like strength and training concepts, they are saying like we have been looking at physical abilities as a part function. For example, like it is not a part, like uh, you have to develop the entire functional abilities, like it's you have to develop the patterns rather than working on just doing a knee extension, or basically developing basic patterns like squats, lunges. If you see kids or toddlers, they have certain phases of development, so those are kind of lost somewhere once we become an adult. So like from my experience, I've done a lot of screening where I see like the simple function as simple as squat is very difficult for people, for sedentary population. So why something as basic as like squat, which is developed even before you speak or you walk, is lost when you become an adult. So yeah. Any more questions, guys?
Yes, there are few questions on the chat box by Farzan and Isha ma'am.
I'll just check. I don't know what I did.
Should I read it out?
Yeah.
Farzan has asked that performance under fatigue state, how can fatigue be intentionally induced? Or what is an outcome measure for fatigue?
Yeah, so basically you can ask them to perform any exercises, or like do. Earlier these test sets were done and special instructions were given that this test sets were supposed to be done when you have enough recovery and you are fresh. But now the fatigue is induced. Basically you make them do something, you make them do a session, and once they are tired, you can repeat the test again. Like all this, the last few slides are the recent development. At Ambani, we never used to follow fatigue protocol, but yeah, all these developments are new because of the neural component and everything, and from the statistics of the re-injury, all this new developments have started coming. I think that answered your question, Farzan. Do you have any more queries on that? You can give some sample exercise program like for 20 minutes or so. Induce a fatigue, make them tired, and then do the testing. Because
I
if you
think that
see,
solves
yeah,
Farzan's question. Yeah.
yeah, you will see
There's
injury
one more
rate.
question.
Yeah,
Okay, you speak.
yeah. Just I'm just adding one more thing is when
Yeah.
you see the injury is more common towards if you become more fatigued towards the end or in competitive situation. So more the competition level, the more the risk of injury. That's why this concept of inducing fatigue has come. So yeah. What was the question from Isha ma'am?
Yes. Uh, when you mentioned about software, does it include overcoming their fear of movement or kinesiophobia?
So that is only one aspect. Like definitely, like so far, all the patients, or even in fact, the examples of jumps which I showed you, that takes a lot of psychological part of dealing. Like you have to overcome their fear and all. So the example where I showed, my screen is still visible. Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes, yes. It is visible.
Yeah. So yeah, if you could see this, the example where I am standing next to an athlete in front of the coach and asking her to do this. So basically building their confidence. You have seen the athlete for a very long time. You have developed some kind of bonding and you have understood like I mean this is, I don't know, this will vary from person to person. You have to develop complete understanding of the person you are rehabbing. Some may have more psychological fears, some may not have, and in fact some may be over enthusiastic. In that case you have to control their level of activity rather than, so if you tell them to do one thing they'll do 10 more things and they will flare up or put themselves in the injury risk. So that is one component which are looked after from certain scales like RSI, and yeah, there are psychometric scale, there's TAMFA. So all those scales are there for psychological readiness. But when I talk about neurological component, I'm not just talking about the psychological fear, I'm talking about the motor learning. So like even when I gave this examples, like this theory is called chaos control, like control to chaos model, where you are starting from certain, just a second, from yeah, so where you are starting from like a predictable situation to some kind of chaotic situation. You are giving some like predictive conditions where an athlete is doing basic task which is he has been asked for, which is easy to do. Then you are incorporating some kind of reactive ability where you are also like asking them to use, because when you play sport there are, you are not just going to do without any distractions. There are so many things, there are so many aspects of it. You have to do decision making. There is a lot of systems are attached like verbal, visual. So you have to train overall ability. So yeah, by neuro component what I mean is motor learning, which is yet to be explored. I think certain as component we are doing, like we have been able to do, but I think there is a lot of scope in improvising in motor learning component of training. So which the example, theoretical example which I see, which I have shown you, if you guys want to look at it. Yeah, so here you will see there are a lot of dual tasks. There would be some visual obstruction. There would be, yeah, you are given virtual glasses. You are distracted. You are doing You are doing decision making. You are, I mean, yeah, a lot of part of decision making is incorporated in this. So that's what I mean. Was I able to solve your query?
Yes, I think it is solved. Ma'am has also asked that is it taken as an outcome measure?
Like motor learning, frankly, is, like I said, it's a new process. So outcome measure, I explained you, right? This test, this has recently come up in one of the article where they have come up. So usually crossover hop test is easy. You just ask an athlete to choose the leg, and and they do the crossover either on right side or left side. Now they are trying to incorporate with the use of sensory systems or visual systems, use of light, using the brain, and then do the activity. So yeah, outcome measure wise also, if you have to decide and reduce the injury risk, you have to incorporate those neural components even in testing and training both. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I could see the, yeah. Any more questions, guys?
You can unmute yourself and ask if any questions. I think no more questions. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Like Chetna herself said, it's quite a new topic and it requires a lot of in-depth understanding. So maybe more reading would be required for us to come up with more questions. And that is why maybe we will be able to contact her if we have any questions at any given time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Chetna. It was really wonderful listening to you. And the way you spoke just makes us realize that you have really in-depth understanding into this, and your involvement with what you're doing at present comes through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely with Anna ma'am. Chetna, whatever you shared, there is an understanding of concepts. At the same time, you have an experience of the things, so you can say with confidence about the same. And in Somaya, chairperson Samir sir, he is always very keen. He travels the world, and he is always very keen. Whatever he sees out of India, anything new. Because in your speech, you many times mentioned that probably this will take time to come in India. So he is very keen. Whenever he knows something is good, he wants it for our college first, I say. So now, since we are going to very soon in coming years, we are going to develop sports. There is much to look forward to. And as I had said to Himali also, I'll say the same thing to you as Anna ma'am also mentioned. As and when required, we will be troubling you. So thank you very much. Nice
Sure. We are happy to do that. So still I would say, like, India, like a good setup, like Ambani. I was lucky to get an opportunity at Ambani. In fact, I don't know, like, I was interning. One of the successful return to performance which I have seen so far when I was interning is Pooja Danda. She is one of the wrestler, and she got silver medal in Commonwealth, in Commonwealth Games. So yeah, not the entire process, but I could witness some amount. So yes. Yeah, I think.
Hello, Chetna. Rupali ma'am here.
Hello, ma'am.
Thank you so much for wonderful session, and it was so great to listening to you. And you have come up with such a confident person, and your hard work and everything looked in your presentation. All the examples which you have given, like your own experience you have shared with us. So your dedication is great, and keep it up.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, and keep in touch. Keep coming.
Yes, definitely. I don't know how much online session has helped, because this has a lot of practical aspect of it, but I did my best with videos. Hopefully,
you are very good. You are very good. Yeah. Loved your session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, Chetna, it was very good session, and as everybody said, we would like to thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was my
and it
pleasure.
was our pleasure to host you. And I'm also thankful to all the participants for attending this session.
Okay, you guys can pop up with any queries or anything, and Isha ma'am, I'll share the articles with you. If anyone else wants, just I don't know if you guys have my number. Just shoot your email ID and I'll be able to share the articles with you.
Yes, Chetna. Thank you so much, Chetna.
Bye.
Bye.